Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello. Welcome to the second zodiac conversation. I don't know what to call it yet, but maybe we'll call it that for now. Last month, we had Cody Smiley on the archetype of Cancer. And this month, I'm inviting Eric Schackne to talk about Leo. Eric, this is from their bio. Eric Schackne is a healing medium, energetic channeler, spaceholder, organizer, teacher, student, award-winning composer, producer, and 15 other things. And in case you haven't guessed yet, Eric is a manifesting generator, of course. And like me, Eric is also a 3-5 profile. And so in this conversation, you really hear a lot of anecdotes about Eric's lived experiences, transitions and transformations, synthesis, and experimentation. And I like how warm and funny and generous and profound Eric is during this conversation, because that's who I know them to be through my interactions with them both online as well as offline. Eric and I met over coffee a couple months ago after being in community online for years now. So that was really special. And yeah, like I said, we talked about Leo primarily. And I read a couple passages from different books. The first one is from Ren Butler's The Archetypal Universe. And the other one is Elias Lonsdale's description of the Chandra symbols, which are truly amazing. If you are Sabian symbols fan and you haven't ventured into the land of the Chandra symbols, especially through the lens of Elias Lonsdale's descriptions, I would highly recommend. There is a website somewhere online, like if you just Google Elias Lonsdale Chandra symbols, you'll get there's this website that basically has all the symbols and the descriptions, and they're really special. So I basically shared them with Eric, and then we weaved our conversations around them. Eric is a Leo sun. Eric also has Mercury and Mars in Leo, and Eric is a Libra rising. So I think that's all you need to know at the front end here. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Eric Schackne on Leo. Well, welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for being here. This is super exciting. I've been feeling you for a while, and I've been, you have been on my guest dream list for a long time, actually. And for whatever reason, I feel like whenever I check in, it kind of feels like, oh, I don't know. The timing is not right. I know we connected a few weeks ago, and then I was like, yep, here we go. Let's do this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited. I've been not anxiously, but colloquially speaking, anxiously awaiting the call. I got the call. Because I remember us talking back before you were starting this
Mm,
and planting a seed of like, we're gonna have a conversation. I remember
that's
us
true.
saying that, like, I don't know when, but
That's true. Yeah. I feel like the time has finally arrived, and I know that we're going to be talking about Leo and we're going to be talking about your chart, but I guess before we jump in, I want to hear a little bit more about who you feel yourself to be in this moment, and you can really take the mic and introduce yourself however feels right. Like maybe you can talk about what you do, talk about how you're feeling. Yeah, whatever's coming up in the moment.
Mm. I it's funny, I noticed that right when you said like how do I feel in this moment, I just like gripped my belly,
Hmm.
put both hands on my belly.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's a that's kind of how I feel actually.
Mm,
I've actually been struggling with the who are you, what do you do question because I feel the most I've ever felt that my existence is who I tend to be,
mm,
and right now it feels especially emergent, where I'm not only switching gears of the identities that I may have had for a few decades, but I'm also like changing the weight of identity in my life in a certain way.
mm.
Um,
Say more about that.
yeah, so well, it's it's interesting because I before the pandemic, I was basically on that artist track of trying to find the most clever way of promoting my music to you. The least, the least advertising front behavior, because like that doesn't resonate with me, that kind of behavior. So
Hmm.
because of my neurospice, I can only really share genuinely what I'm actually genuinely excited about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just feels like the opposite of living.
Mm,
Um, So it's been interesting going from that capitalistic framework to existence to this newer phase of living more relationally, more animist, more less, more less,
yeah.
uh, peeling away stories that I may have bound myself to, um,
Mm,
because I thought that's how I would survive.
mm,
And it's everything from spending. So the quip that I would say about who I am and what I do is that like I'm a musician, a composer, a teacher, a music director, and 15 other things. That's kind of just like how I would always express it because well the nature of modern day where I couldn't just be one thing most likely most people can't just do one thing to survive.
yeah.
And also that's just how I work as well.
Mm.
Uh, I'm a life path 5. I'm very much about smelling all the roses. It's been interesting because in pandemic was when I sort of shifted the who I was to like, and I've been reflecting on this specifically in this month, that I went from an I to a we understanding of this world.
Mm,
And once you realize, once I sat into being a we, then I'm not like, it's like artists are still operating in the capitalist structure and at the end of the day are trying to serve themselves. And that was like my way through it.
yeah.
And what would that look like if it was more centered around the we?
Mm,
Like my health was also dependent on your health. And so so yeah, with that, stepping into more spiritual work.
mm,
I mean, we met in that energy course and
yeah.
studying, and before that, I had taken some courses with a medium and having my social justice and spiritual awakenings kind of happening around the same time. I was also looking to teachers that would acknowledge capitalism, acknowledge what we were physically going through during this
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And through that, I learned that I didn't want to do it the way that I was seeing it done.
Mm,
Like if I was going to do this other thing, it actually was not going to be like substituting musician for medium. That wasn't going to work for me. And
yeah.
so
And then doing everything still, basically essentially doing the same thing, just under a different title. That's what you meant.
Basically, yeah, it has a
Yeah.
different energy, and I got really clear on intention being such a big part of our reality,
Yeah.
and just humbling myself to those new realizations. It's been an interesting process of like I can't call myself a community healer unless like that's something that happens in like retrospect.
Mm,
So I learned these lessons through humility of just living my life this way. I don't care if someone wants to pay me money for the oils that I gave them because they think it costs money.
mm,
Like I can just do my best to say, just to give it to them and say, I thought you needed this.
mm,
Um, and then it's up to them to reciprocate how they feel. So like the way I move in through my spiritual practice, my energy practice, relationally even has just been it's been a lot of effort just to sort of maintain my boundaries and make sure that I'm at least expressing myself clearly because it we all still exist and engage in a very capitalistic world in a very yeah systemically ruled world
mm.
um, to put it in like one of the many ways.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a human being and I do feel like I do feel like I can identify with some other things more specifically now. Which like this year, starting to realize that, oh, there were more than human spiritual entities coming through in every session, almost every session I've ever had with people. So I think it's about time that I call myself a medium,
Mm,
meaning signaling to the universe that I am available for that, if that's really what is here for me.
yeah.
And even that has been something that I've had to sort of soften my human expectation of what that means. Because immediately someone will come to me with wanting specific questions answered in a specific way, wanting me to contact specific people in specific ways. And I'm like, oh, there's a way that people that don't really understand it want it to work.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been an interesting experience. Um, because ultimately what that separation was not identifying with the output
Mm,
anymore.
mhm.
It's the I to we shift for me.
Yeah.
My music was everything. If you didn't like my song and you didn't share with a friend, you didn't like me and you didn't want me to have friends. That's like how I
Mm,
felt. And
mhm.
so with the healing stuff, it's all faith-based, with moments of human like scrambling and
Yeah.
grasping where I'm like, I trust that, and it's happened. I trust that I'll meet people when I need to meet them, where like when they're at a place where I'm also at a place where, XYZ. It's like it's all as it needs to go.
Yeah.
And f like funny enough to like, to like I was gonna say Instagram, but like to like branding dismay. I I don't necessarily have to identify as any one thing. I just sort of like engage with people and they know what I channel and
Mm,
I end up having to name it less.
yeah.
It's more, yeah, it's
Yeah.
more relational. So it feels funny calling myself a medium because it's still I'm stepping into it more, but I'm still finding the language. Um yeah, it also just feels like such a like always such a long answer when I'm trying to get into it because I've never been like a one track kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel so much resonance in a lot of what you're sharing. And here's where I'll start. I guess I'm curious to hear you speak more about what being a medium means to you, or how have you experienced it?
Mm. To put it simply, a medium to me just feels like a bridge.
Mm,
And that's to me my experience of it because like I'll say, I don't know if I said specifically, but these are words that are already removed from what they actually mean and what we're experiencing when it's happening. So
Yeah.
like lots of people call themselves a medium and their experience is, I would argue, as different as there are mediums.
Mm.
Um, anyhow, that's a tangential feeling. Okay, brain, neurospice. Yeah, for me, well, I'll settle into language that actually felt good as of yesterday, which was healing medium.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
before then, I think the most concise description I would say was a healing channel,
Mm.
because I feel like I come and I create a container with an intention for healing to take place and or to be available for whatever needs to come through, which I learned over time generally was healing. Regardless of how you think about it, it was healing work that I was doing.
Mm.
Um, and how it was coming through, because I work a lot with cards, and so cartomancy was and still is a big form of magic for me, um, and divination tool. And I was just accidentally doing it in readings. Some examples are like I would notice a tree in the background of a picture on an oracle card, and I wouldn't know what I was describing, but I would end up describing someone's recently deceased close collaborator
Mm.
who, they've been struggling with their own art, and then like a message would come through, and that was part of my process, was just trusting that when I am consciously intentionally tuning in to something greater than myself, then that's all information to be shared, and it's not
Yeah.
really up to me, Eric, to decide what is and is not to be shared,
Mm.
because I realized over time I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't
Mm.
know the meaning of what I'm saying to you. I might think that I'm getting at something, but I rarely ever know for sure. Which is why I always say maybe I'm saying the cousin idea to what
Mm.
is coming through that might make sense to you.
Yeah.
So it came through that way, and then some other aspects from witnessing other mediums, practicing and working with different people, I started to get some semblance of shapes and experiences that I might experience, um, to correlate with this mediumship experience.
Mm.
And once I opened up to that, I realized that my metaphor is like a shoreline.
Mm.
When the waves pull back, you can feel that energy of the waves going away, which is actually part of the energy of the wave coming into the shore as well. So if the wave coming into the shore is the session I'm having with someone, then the waves pulling in is out of time, out of space and time, but I get a sense of something that is arriving or here for someone. So I like take notes throughout the day when things come through and make sure that I'm being clear enough in myself so that I can like know what was mine from that day.
Mm.
But funny enough, when something comes in that's like that also came through for me, oftentimes that's also for the other person.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of that, remaining sensitive to all that is basically, and I mean it is, once I take one step further, I'm like it's actually kind of complicated the way that I experience it, because it's body based,
Mm.
it's intuition based, it's spiritual, it's claircognizance, it's clairvoyance, as well as somatic and, um, I was going to say like a part of my energetic ecology
Mhm.
as well with my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's changing. It's the other aspect, which is just to humble myself. It's funny sharing about this because I'm also acknowledging that it's changing, and it's changing with me, especially right now. It's been interesting. Yeah.
Mm. Mhm. For some reason, I'm feeling guided to talk about your chart. at this point, and maybe in response to what you were sharing. Um,
or that I just really want you to.
maybe, maybe I'm picking up on that. But let me see here. When I was reading your chart, Eric, and this was kind of the point of entry for us. During our last conversation, we were talking about your Leo stellium. You have the Sun at home in Leo and Mars and Mercury in Leo. And you are a Libra rising. So all of that is in your 11th house by whole sign house. And um, what I felt guided to, there are a couple things that I felt guided to share with you. And I'm actually going to share my screen here just so you can read along as I'm reading this. But there were a couple things that I wanted to read for you. One is from this book. It's called The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. And it's a really interesting astrology book because he doesn't talk about signs. He's an archetypal astrologer, and archetypal astrology is a branch of astrology that studies the aspects between planets and doesn't really bring in uh, significations of signs, like zodiac signs. And the other piece I wanted to read to you was from the Chandra Symbols by Elias Lonsdale, um, which is based on this work that came through this channel, this medium, which actually kind of gave me chills just saying that because I kind of didn't make this connection. Like, I know you're a medium, but when I was doing this research, that wasn't what was top of my mind. But I just felt strongly like, oh, I'm going to read the description of these Chandra symbols that Elias Lonsdale created based on the symbols that was channeled by, um, if I'm not mistaken, his name is John Sandbach. I might be wrong because my brain is frying sometimes, but I'm going to read you all of it. And let's see like what arises out of this, and please interrupt me if there's anything you strongly want to say in that moment. If you have a response, please stop me. So this is from
Tell the Leo stellium to please interrupt you if I have something to say.
yes, exactly. So this is the Ren Butler quote. So with regards to Sun, Mercury, Mars, an eager and passionate mind, a gift for dynamic communication, a capacity to make plans and act quickly, mental restlessness and agitation, a rash and impulsive way of communicating, in your face directness. An energized and passionate mind, a direct and upfront way of speaking, a capacity to speak one's truth, qualities of forthrightness and honesty, forceful writing and speech, an ability to stand up for oneself and get one's point across, urges to assert oneself and ask for what one wants, a talent for planning adventures and activities, a capacity to make plans and act quickly, humorous, sharp comments, a keen, pointed, or rapier-like wit, cussing in self-expression, dynamic verbal catharsis. And then on the flip side of that, he wrote,
Oh yeah.
he wrote mental restlessness and agitation, a sense of intellectual overload, surges of paperwork or emails that need attention, hot-headed irritation, rash and impulsive communication, pointed or aggressive self-expression, a tendency to perceive ongoing threats and insults, inclinations to argue, insult people or make sarcastic comments, a habit of goading or provoking others, verbal competitiveness, loud and heated speech, obnoxious macho banter, in your face directness, a cocky attitude, aggressive or offensive wit. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, like, I don't really see that in our interactions, but what I will say, Eric, is every time we've been in spaces together, I've felt this kind of provocateur within you that is just like lurking underneath the surface. And I was mentioning to you before we jump on this call that I was feeling some nervousness talking to you. And I feel like part of that is because there's kind of a mirroring that happens when the two of us are in spaces together because I see that in myself too. Like I may not be these things like, obnoxious macho banter. I can't really see us engaging in that. But I don't know, like maybe there's kind of a background frequency of that, which from my perspective actually makes you a very magnetic person. But I'm curious to hear what's coming up for you hearing this.
Read me to filth. I so I mean, like, it's funny to me because it makes sense for the combination of those intelligences.
Hmm.
Um, Other than reveling in like the wow, it me of it all, what comes to mind is actually that it's describing my neurospice.
Mm.
And that's something that I think about because we have such a um, negative um, context to diagnoses when maybe it's just a way that the universe expresses itself. And
Yeah.
so I was just having a moment of connecting, like, yeah, we have a word for that, and we have a meaning for what that word means
Mm.
now to
Hmm.
be not neurotypical. But it's also just an expression.
Yeah.
Because the other side of that I was noticing is like those are just two sides of a dial. Like one is turned way up and one isn't turned up so high.
Mm. Hmm.
But it me, I I see a lot of the stuff I've looked at and healed in myself,
Mm.
and you're not wrong. I've been told by former employers that I write a really well-worded letter, and for better or for worse, I know how to be very politely cutting.
Mm.
Um, and throughout my life, I tend to if I get in trouble, it's for speaking up for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and I'm very anti-authoritarian, very anti-authority,
Mm.
which all this makes sense as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a quality of Leo that I've seen in you in community, as well as, and when we kind of talked about this, is that quality of illumination. Like there's kind of nothing, and doesn't mean that we can't be nervous about it, right? But there's nothing hidden in a way. It's like when the sun enters the room, like everything gets illuminated, like all the corners are now kind of up for grabs, right? Like we can see it now. Um and what I feel is such an interesting combination, like just having taken a peek at your chart, Eric, is also that you are a Libra rising and your Venus is very much, on your midheaven and it's in the sign of Cancer. And so like that there's kind of this uh like both the lunar and the solar quality in your being is very present. And this is something I've been experiencing and I didn't really have language for that until I kind of started looking at your chart and I was like, whoa, that's really cool.
The lunar connection is also to my Libra moon.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
And learning my Libra stuff has actually been interesting over time.
Mm. How so?
Well, like the newspaper horoscope growing up was Leo, and you would just look up meanings for Leo. And then as I started to learn more, I learned other stuff, and I couldn't really find examples of why people don't necessarily always peg me as a Leo when they meet me at first, because I
Mm.
can be very Libra and and share space. Uh, like I have friends that wear their Leo more on the outside, that like they have to stand up at a table to tell a story.
Mm.
Like I think that's obnoxious.
Hmm.
Um, like for obviously it's out of context, but like I think that like I wouldn't do that because I would feel like, oh, I'm not going to stand up and tell my story. Like, you
Yeah.
know, um, almost in a similarly Leo way, I like want them to listen to me while I'm sitting. Um,
Yeah.
but but learning my like Libra stuff of how I want everyone to be happy and Um, I'm, I mean, it's just been interesting noticing
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the Venus of it all is it. I think I really feel it playing into a lot of my Leo expression too.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. How do you feel the Libra energy complementing or working with the Leo energy in your life and in your chart?
I feel like they balance each other out, or at least the Libra balances out my Leo
Mm.
because for better or for worse, I have an awareness of my outside surroundings. I come by it honestly. I've done a lot of healing around orienting to the other, reading rooms and all that jazz, and which has also been a big part of discovering my spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Part of learning who I tend to be, I think, is an integration of my Libra and Leo, because now I still speak up, but I'm aware that like no matter how much I speak up, I'm probably not gonna be as aggressive as I think I am
Mm.
because of my innate Libra-ness in both rising and moon, and also my Leo-ness is coming from the heart.
Mm.
But I just have these stories of being like in a spotlight that I didn't want to be in, and a tons of spotlights that I wanted to be in, but that stigma of like being in a spotlight, getting negative attention,
Mm.
or being made a leader without wanting to be because I happen to be outspoken,
Right.
and learning how to balance that because I think a Leo by itself probably would throw a fit and make it everyone else's business.
Mm.
And that's like the unhealed version of my response and integration into any space. And now I mean, this is not something that I've actually contemplated until this moment. So like I'm just phrasing it as like, oh, let's think about it. The Libra stuff is, yeah, really interesting to me in that sense because it's also very love centered at
Mm.
the same time.
Hmm.
And I feel like Leo secretly wants harmony. We just also feel really special, and we want
Hmm.
that to be a part of it. Um, so it's interesting. I love my Libra stuff, to be honest. The more that I've learned about my Libra connections, it's been, yeah, really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to read you this um piece around the degree of your sun. So you are 26 degrees Leo sun, and the symbol associated with it is a beaded curtain. And this is Lonsdale's description of it. A double identity, outwardly conventional, appropriate, legitimate, and orthodox, inwardly alien, cosmic, involved with other realities, and boldly exploring the infinite. You feel compelled by inner necessity to maintain both worlds and to serve the outer by bolstering goodwill everywhere. Yet this is achieved with a fraction of your awareness and sensibility. Meanwhile, the depths, the heights, the many worlds beyond are there, are attended to, are thoroughly made your own. You are the iceberg person with a wonderful tip showing and a fabulous wealth of goodies inside to partake in endlessly. I It's interesting hearing you speak about your experience with mediumship because I feel like this is kind of what I'm hearing, Eric, because uh, something that I really appreciate from hearing you speak about your experience with being an artist and being also a spiritual practitioner is that you seem to be really keyed in to the vast gap between mental expectations of what something needs to be and the actual practice of it. And you and I met in the energetic ecology program, and this is, I feel like, something that a lot of people who ended up becoming energy practitioner has always been in touch with, that there are these words that people use or these concepts that we overlay onto reality. But what I perceive from you and from kind of both your work and just being in connection with you is you're really tuned in to like the energetic experience, which always dismantles the mental concept, and I feel like this description of the degree of your sun kind of speaks to that, right? It says,
Mhm.
achieved with a fraction of your awareness and sensibility. Meanwhile, the depths, the heights, the many worlds beyond are there, are attended to, are thoroughly made your own.
Yeah. Hit me. I feel it again. It's interesting because I have been told many a time that I contain multitudes,
Mm,
and it's interesting because I do feel like an iceberg person,
mm,
and I
mm.
also really resonate with the fraction of awareness and sensibility because I believe that some of that um, problematic behavior, that was like some of those behaviors that were labeled problematic, were actually just what I did with that extra energy that I had.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, maybe the assignment that you gave didn't make sense to me, and so I
Hmm.
I am now using all this other energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The phrase that came in my head is the rebel king. And even king itself is kind of a loaded word, but um why did this come up? I'm trying to backtrack my brain here. I think there's something you said there, Eric, that made me think about this question I wanted to ask you. Do you feel like being that iceberg person got you into trouble throughout your life?
I don't know if it got me in trouble. In this moment when you ask me, I'm feeling like it more so has done a disservice
Hmm.
realm of self-awareness.
Hmm. How so?
I struggle with feeling like someone gets me and that I'm
Hmm.
being seen,
Hmm.
especially if someone meets me in a very specific way,
Hmm.
knowing that I contain multitudes and like I was actually doing something completely different that's also a life passion yesterday, but you'll have no idea that I do that if we never talk about it.
Yeah.
Mediumship is one of those things where like I didn't just start this year and there's still people that I've been organizing with since 2020 that like didn't know.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a little bit in that way, in just like a pure relational Venusian kind of way. Like my relationships don't necessarily get all that information in them.
Hmm.
And so my ego struggles with feeling seen. And I think I tend to play into the smallness or whatever I perceive the container to be
Hmm.
more so than trying to really live on the edge of, well, I hope they ask a question about that thing that I just said.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, it's just me going on like diatribes about like, this is all that I do. And oh, here's something else. Just to grab a seat and I'll tell you about all this stuff that I do. It's like,
Yeah.
it's inorganic. So
Yeah.
it's tricky. It's also feels protective as
Hmm.
well. Um, there's just something that feels, and that honestly that comes from a like a spiritual suggestion
Hmm.
that that is also from a protection.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel what's been your relationship with projection throughout your life?
Projection or protection?
Projection. Hmm.
Projection. Well, one of my biggest life lessons is, like I mentioned earlier, the lesson around orienting to the other
Mm,
and learning what is and is not my side of the street and rewriting my nervous system responses that happen when I feel like I just want to like help.
mm,
So the projection of it all is something that would describe a good amount of my life. uh, because I didn't necessarily, well, okay, it's interesting because it was all mixed up and misplaced. It was all just mixed up
mm,
because some of those things were happening in me, and I would blame other people for me being uncomfortable. And then there was other things happening where I'd be projecting onto myself that like,
mm,
oh, because that's part of my understanding of my like energetic sense is sometimes what I'm picking up is not mine at all, and sometimes what I'm picking up is only mine. And yeah, it's interesting. Projection just feels like a broadsword. It just feels dangerous.
mm.
It's like I'm in this moment. I'm like, is there even a positive use of projection, or is it always like a deflection of some sort, an inability to be with? At least that's how the meaning that's coming to me when you're asking about projection. It feels like something that is not a healthy response.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like, well, I asked you about projection because you and I are both 35 profiles in human design. And I feel like that's also,
Whoop whoop.
yeah, it's also a thing, it's like, but I feel like I've ever since I learned about being a 3-5 and the fifth line body being connected to the idea of like really, mm, I don't know if playing into is the right phrasing for it, but like maybe really it's really easy for the fifth line body to get like swept into the projection, willingly or unwillingly. Something I've been seeing is just how I feel like that's kind of an inherent part of the human brain, right? Like the human brain, like right now I'm looking at you, Eric, and I can't fully know the entirety of your experience, going back to this iceberg metaphor that is in the description of this degree of Leo. Um, and also I feel like talking to people with really strong Cancer and Leo placement, or who has really prominent moon placement like you, because you have your moon in the first house. I feel like projection is kind of a theme that will continue to like come up, in the life, and learning to deal with that and learning different facets of what it even means, to be projected on or to project something onto reality, right? This kind of game that we play with like expectations and reality is very present, I feel like, when Cancer and Leo energies are very present in someone's chart, because those are the two luminaries, right? Like those are the two celestial spheres we can consistently see, in the sky. And the nature of the sun and the moon is such that they are kind of reflecting on one another's light, and the earth is kind of like somewhere in between the sun and the moon. And yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's projection just feels in this moment, it feels like a leap, but projection really feels like a human ailment.
yeah.
It feels like a spiritual malady,
Mm, mhm.
like needing to decide and know something more than living in the feeling of it all or sensing back into the bigger. the bigger piece.
Yeah.
It's really wild. I mean, yeah, it's all survival. It's what also comes up is teachers that are naming me a bad kid. That's
Mm.
also projection for whatever reason. They don't want to be a bad teacher. They I'm frustrating them, so I become this like problem for them.
Yeah.
And and then I mean that's a part of how I teach too. I think it's one of the those things that I say is like when like that was actually one of those mini spiritual awakenings just through science was realizing that how much we change the world with our mind just
Mm.
in very tangible ways. When you call a kid a problem child, you are paving a road for them and you're giving energy to them to be a problem child because
Mm.
that's the lens you just put on yourself. It doesn't
Yeah.
change them, but over time, between you two, it will change them.
Right. Right.
So when I have to sit at the front now, I'm going to behave differently than when I was sitting in the back of the class. Or
Yeah.
when someone
Yeah.
makes me a leader in a space that I didn't want to be a leader necessarily, it's like I've become that. And it's like yeah, it's like, and it does a disservice to everyone because we've stopped learning. We've stopped being like porous, I think, because we've decided that that's what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Is that an experience you had in your life? A lot.
Oh yeah. Okay. Which I was like, didn't I give enough examples? I could span more time. Let's see. I didn't choose one from college. I can choose one from college age. Uh, well, no, I mean, it's interesting because my awareness of that was actually pretty early on. I don't know. I haven't like happened an inciting moment where I was like extremely aware of that, the way that we engage with people, but I was I was very aware of just those unspoken decisions we've made on who everybody is.
Mm.
And an example of that is power. Like I realized out of like early, thank goodness, early enough on that I realized that like when I am in a power position, I have to really just be careful
Yeah.
of everything else
Hmm.
because I mean, I think I came through it through like humility actually, because I didn't necessarily feel qualified to be like a TA. In college, I was a TA
Mm.
while I was still in college. And so I was teaching people that were maybe even a year older than I was. So there were these moments where, yeah, I would just be, I mean, I think I've always had a humble streak to me for as Leo as I am. I feel like I'm always pretty quick to be like, uh, just clarifying that this is, just me. Like I'm
Mm.
just one person seeing this and reflecting from my experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
What subject were you TAing for?
that was improv. In college, there
Ah.
was it was when I discovered improv comedy in air
Hmm.
quotes because
Hmm.
it doesn't always get there. But when I went to the University of Florida, they had a college course called Improvisation of Political Social. I'm going to start over. Improvisation of Social and Political Issues.
Mm.
And it was basically improv, but worded in like a collegiate way.
Yeah.
You could take it up to 3 times for a credit, and so I did that. And they elect TAs for the class because they assign MFA acting students to actually like teach the class for the university, but
Mm.
they don't know anything about improv, and so we would elect TAs from within.
Hmm.
So sophomore year or junior year was when I started teaching, and yeah, like I literally remember there was a girl that I was attracted to and friendly with, but like I asked her out like right after class was done
Mm.
because I just felt there was something. I can't remember all the thought that I put into it, but it was enough thought to go, I'm not going to flirt with this person or even ask them out until we don't have this between us.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
anyway, power transcends even that. So it's just funny. We're always doing the best we can, but like
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be conscious of stuff like that. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. This is reminding me of your your Mars degree, which is the symbol of it or the image of it is elegant black women sitting on a porch and fanning themselves. And then the description is rising superior to apparent limitations, you defiantly renounce the letter of the law to salvage the spirit of the law. Puncturing pretense, breaking down power and control structures. You are militantly outrageous, anti-traditional, pulled forward by a vision, a knack, an instinct for what this earth asks and demands. On fire with the power of radical changes, you feel in your cells the next stage in evolution. Ignited by the sense for being selected out as the quintessential representative of progressive currents, you dramatize yourself, your cause, your expanding awareness. You want to make sure everybody knows that something new is going on around here and that it will not stop nor take a backseat to anybody or anything. Which took me to what Ren Butler was writing earlier about like standing up for oneself and getting one's point across, but then also like this loud and heated speech. And I don't know, I feel like all that we've been talking about with regards to like being a problem student and like projection is so interesting, right? Because where is the line? It makes me think about like where is the line between, being someone who propels the narrative forward, right? In a way that your Mars and Leo is well equipped to do, and being a troublemaker, you know?
Present. That Mars description really hit hard.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I feel like, I mean, I've always been against authority in a way
Mm,
where like the ways that I behave usually have some sort of, at least a sheen of rebelliousness, of radical communication.
mhm,
Um, like my very first job, I had a guest at the Sawgrass Mills Mall in Sunrise, Florida, in high school. I remember getting just like in the interview, they asked me how much I got paid in my last job. I worked at a factory for like a couple days, so
mhm.
I just said that higher rate, and so I got like a certain rate. And at the time, minimum wage was pretty low. And I remember in when we were talking to the coworkers one day, they asked like they were complaining about working there, and they was like, "Well, then why do you work here?" And I said, "Well, 8.50 an hour." And then that's when I learned that they were all getting paid much less than I was.
Whoa.
And I just kind of like got asked not to come in to work. And
Wow.
it's a very subtle example of just like, yeah, it's just like radical. Like I'm not gonna tell them to pay me less.
Mm,
And at the same time, I get in trouble running my mouth sometimes because I think the system's ridiculous.
yeah.
I feel like I'm always coming from a weird point of view of I already know why it's faulty and you still want me to buy into it.
Mm,
Like I remember as a kid, one of my like retorts through tears to my parents when they're like, when I'm in trouble, I'm for something that I didn't know was wrong.
mm,
And I remember and at least more than once saying like, how can I be in trouble if I didn't know it was wrong?
mm.
And that feels like
Whoa.
a very like Mars, like this description of just
Yeah.
like sort of saying that back instead of just like taking it and being like, okay, let's just like do it. And okay, we're in trouble. It's like, I have
Yeah.
one more thing to say.
Yeah.
Just so you know, this is all ridiculous.
Mhm,
Uh, doesn't change what's going to actually happen to me, but like this has happened in so many like in every phase of my life, whether it's like the reason I left Second City was because of a letter like this, where I was like, I quit, and this is the things that you're gonna know also
mm,
when I
mhm.
leave.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just, and like I said, the one employer that said I write a really well-worded letter, she was like, I still have to penalize you for that thing you did. The story doesn't matter necessarily, but she's like, I still have to penalize you for what you did, but just so you know, you write a really well-worded letter.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
like it was those moments of like respect, but also the system is corrupt and I'm still gonna, you know,
I'm gonna punish you for it in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel that so hard. I mean, this is so present in me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really struck by this piece around renouncing the letter of the law to salvage the spirit of the law. And then the next phrase after that is puncturing pretense. And I'm curious how this plays into being a musician for you, Eric. Because I feel like I don't know about you, but for me, one of the things that music gave me, especially when I was younger, was the license to rebel. And even if the rebellion is as small as I get to finish my homework as quickly as possible so then I can then practice the piano to be good enough and perform in front of everybody else and show everybody else what the rest of the school couldn't do. You know, that there was that like to me, honestly, it was kind of discouraging to see as an adult how when that friction is no longer there, when I was no longer trying to prove how different I was to everybody else, because now I'm an adult and I can just be friends with whoever I want to be friends with. I don't have to fight them off. I realized a lot of my personal desire to be at the center of that stage kind of dissipated. Like I didn't really want to do it anymore. Like I didn't want to perform. Like I just wanted to be kind of cozily with everybody else. But that was just my story about rebellion and music. But I'm curious, yeah, what comes up for you when you think about, you know, renouncing the letter of the law to salvage the spirit of the law in connection to music?
Mm.
Or is it making you think about something else?
Well, I feel well, two little ideas come up around this. One is that I've always been aware that I am not playing the game like I know it could be played.
Mm.
For better or for worse,
You mean in terms of building a career as a musician?
yeah, like I literally knew people at yeah, like an example is like literally being told at a certain phase in the YouTube timeline that like if you just post every day something in a year, after posting every day, you will get something in
Mm.
the form of what you're creating.
Hmm.
You will gain attention. And it's like, even though I was told by someone who was very influential and knows exactly what they're talking about, I was still like, nah, I, I get it, and still nah, um, because there's still an element of who am I when I'm doing that,
Mm.
um, and yeah, it's interesting because improv and music producing and composing and mediumship, they're all kind of similar in the sense of you just need to deal with and be with what's here right now. Like even in music producing, this is again my philosophy, but it's echoed in a lot of producers that I've heard and admired philosophy, which is like you're serving the song that you're in
Yeah.
at the time that you're making it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to be able to introduce that freedom to a
Mm.
process because a songwriter will come in and immediately say like, oh, we got a really good idea and like have a really clear vision, and then I get to bring in this idea of, well, when we get into the studio we might have a different idea, or we need to create space for something that feels like it is the song,
Hmm.
and there's no way to really know that, and at the same time also finishing the song that you're in and not leaving
Mm.
it open to being like, well, um, yeah. So I'm like the puncturing pretense is that almost all people I've worked with in a creative sense have like have a kind of clear idea of where it's going to go. And in my
Mm.
experience, it rarely goes exactly that way.
Yeah.
Almost never goes exactly that way. And I find a lot of my job ends up being demystifying the process.
Mm.
Well, like improv comedy, for example, is all about being in the moment. It's actually the best thing you could do is only listening, and then only responding. Like that's one of the best things you could do. The person that's thinking of the best joke while someone else is in the moment will they might get a laugh at their joke, but
Mm.
usually they don't.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing else going on because
Yeah.
they've which is different than like taking quote unquote taking care of yourself
Yeah.
and developing a really cool character that just like lives on its own and can be interacted with.
Mm.
So it's like demystification feels like a big part of that.
Mm.
And some people called me like the Zen teacher for improv because it really is all about just like being where you are and like that's why I think improv is so funny is because we're all along for this ride. And when someone makes a big reaction to something that just was created, that reaction is hilarious
Yeah.
because we're all right there with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's also just the power and control of it all, which really you have to let go of power. I mean, as a producer, I have to let go of power and control. That
Mm.
was one of my biggest lessons as a human was being a music producer
Mm.
because, and that's actually what was one of my one of the qualities that I think I excelled in the improv and sketch world was because I worked a lot with groups. So
Mm.
there were times I had to write a whole song with a cast of 7 to 10 people and trying to balance all those ideas and make everyone feel like they're included and know that at the end of the day, I'm just a facilitator. It's not even my job. Well, it's my job to let them know what is and is not going to work,
Mm.
but it's also my job to not be in control.
Yeah.
I I almost want to be absent. A lot of my work that I do is almost I don't want to be here when it's finished because then I will have done a good job.
Yeah. Which is so interesting, right? Because I feel like in pop astrology, people often talk about Leo as like being this like me character, like needing to be at the center of everything. But what I'm hearing from you is that, and I think this makes a lot of sense given that Leo is in your 11th house, that you, going back to what you were saying earlier on in our conversation, like this practice of moving from the me to the we, or kind of like maybe back and forth, like building a bridge between the me and the we, and in so doing, uh, beginning to shed a light. Like I feel like what you were describing, and also just being a music producer in general, is such an interesting practice of like this thing wouldn't have been here if I weren't here. But also like I'm taking in input from everybody else in a way. Yeah, it's also making me think about conductors. The role of conductors. Like there are conductors out there, like music conductors who are absolute like control freak, but there's also conductors who are there and just in the confidence of their presence is able to kind of glue everything together, you
Mhm.
know? And that also is like to me that's the kind of power that we don't always talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean that to me lines with Leo energy clearly because it's not one way. It's not there's not only one way to do it.
Mhm.
It's like because there's lots of people that are performers and on stage that are. It's not like everybody's a Leo, although there's a lot of Aries out there. But um, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, that was something was coming up for me that I just lost. Sometimes I make the joke and then the information leaves my brain. Oh yes, I was gonna say I I think uh, and so I'm also loosely quoting Pam Gregory, who's an astrologer
Hmm.
that I love listening to, and
Hmm.
she was talking about how Aries is the I am, and Leo is like I sparkle.
Mm.
And I maybe
Mm.
not be quoting her exactly, but that's the essence that I get, and actually the most powerful that I feel in the most powerful and right sized I feel in my energy is when, and this happens in sessions too, in spiritual sessions where I know that all I have to do, I don't have to tell them anything. I'm actually just going to share something from my own experience, and sometimes that's actually what needed to come through for them was
Yeah.
actually I feel like I may be talking about myself, or why am I going to share this with you like this now? But there's an element that I really do feel about like I'm in charge of that energy that I bring to a space,
Mm.
and that imagery of like even just a little bit of light can bring light to a dark room
Yeah.
that we're always influencing with our energy.
Right.
But it's an antithetical sort of feeling where I'm not gonna perform my song and dance for you, even though I could. I
Hmm.
um I'm an unassumingly good dancer because I just
Oh,
don't wear that necessarily all on my sleeve all the time. So it's again one of those things like unless you connected with me when we were, when that was happening, you
when
might
there's
not.
a context for dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been popping and locking the whole time. You just can't see because but it's that's for real though. I think that's why one of my biggest pillars is self-transformation. Like I truly
Mm.
believe that if everybody was as self-aware and engaging in self-transformational processes as much as they as much
Mm.
as they're able to,
Hmm.
that we learn a lot more about the world
Yeah.
just by showing up more authentically ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to that because I think there's something really profound there that you helped me. Actually, I'm just gonna say it right now. And then
Nice.
I'm gonna read you your Mercury degree um to kind of wrap us off. But um I actually stumbled upon one Instagram post that you made, one of the last ones before you took your break and you move on to Patreon. And I was doing a little bit of research on you before this conversation, and you mentioned essentially what you just said, this piece around self-transformation. And I was thinking about that throughout this conversation, and I wonder what you think about this. In my experience, allowing myself to move through transformations have been probably one of the most courageous things that I've allowed myself to do because I think that there is something to both cultural values, but also just the nature of physics and being human in general, where it's a lot easier to just kind of be with the inertia, right? Like there's inertia, and sometimes in order to transform, you have to like take yourself through those first super painful steps, before the momentum starts rolling in the new direction. And I've been thinking about the role of self-transformation and like kind of collective liberation or transformation. And my sense is that allowing ourselves to transform makes us more empathetic and appreciative of other people's transformations and other people's capacity for transformation, as well as the ever-changing nature of reality. Because the truth is, the desire to stay the same, or even kind of the compulsion, maybe more accurately, to stay the same, feels to me like this mental story that we tell ourselves. The realities were always shifting, right? And becoming an active agent or participant in that change often makes you realize what is truly essential. And I think when thinking about collective liberation, I think about how much of what shackles us is are like our attachment to things, or our attachment to like how things have always been that actually is unnecessary. But we don't know that until we let ourselves move through the transformation. I feel like I kind of went on a soapbox there, but I'm curious to hear how that's landing for you and or what you would add to that.
Yeah, there's a all that's resonating. There's also a somatic level, a body level to all this. And my framework is conditioning.
Mm,
So one of the frameworks that helps me is just thinking about how much time do I have doing it a different way and how much time do I have doing it the other way, and to provide some space for compassion. So so if I've been doing this kind of work more substantially since 2020, then maybe I'm maybe I'm only accountable for what I think a 5-year-old might have accumulated as far as like
mm,
attention span or ability to stay in that place.
mm,
But the more conditioned area is going to have a much more strong response. So like the actually what I wanted to offer up was there's like an accessibility need to all of this as well, which it's very easy to say,
mm,
but in recovery work, I learn quips that help me like it's simple but not easy, and it's also there's also a variable spiritual element, which is who whose barometer are we reading for what change we have to make during this
mm,
lifetime?
mhm,
Because we're oftentimes still trying to anchor into the old stories and trying to change in a fashion that will suit our old selves and using that as the guidepost, as opposed to probably needing to find new community that will affirm I
mm.
don't know, the leaning into
Yeah.
I'm just going to feel my feelings today and I'm going to be a mess today because you're not a mess today and you can witness me, and that's what we get to do in like our energetic courses. We get to like kind of fall apart together and explore, and yeah, it's interesting. It feels like a human thing, I will say. That's
Mm,
like part of all this still feels like it's a human thing, and then there's another extra little step that it takes to weave in the spiritual a little bit more.
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in there though. It's because I even think that even self-transformation, I even felt called to be say it's also self-transcendence,
Mm,
because there's self-transformation that allows you to be like an ethical and moral human being while you're in your lifetime, like the collective agreements we have about what we're trying to change and what works and doesn't work, which I don't believe exists in infinity. Like I think it is like we're in a context here,
yeah. Yeah.
um, which is dangerous to say, but it's like, you know, I do feel like our agreements are contextual.
Yeah.
It's like there's self-transformation, but then there's also self-transcendence, which really allows, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm about to get on my soapbox, but that's like that to me is the next step, which feels more speaking to my Leo stellium, is like requires a little bit of self-transcendence.
I,
So
I was I was actually wanting you to go into that soapbox. I felt myself like kind of at the edge of my seat. So I don't know if there's more you want to say there. I feel like I kind of have an idea of where you were maybe going, but
yeah, well, to me, there a lot of my understandings of this of this work, so to speak, it really does feel like there's a human experience, and then there's a spiritual, then there's a whole, and then and then after that is a bunch of other spiritual stuff that exists that goes on a lot more expansively.
mm,
So there's a lot that we talk about that really I think is just helping humans um, be as integrative as they can be.
yeah.
But not everyone is trying to have an ego death in this lifetime, and that's not even necessarily healthy during this time, which is yeah. So it's an interesting quality that I don't think is necessary for everyone to do in their lifetime,
Mm,
which is why I don't think everyone needs to do drugs. I don't think everyone needs to like have an ego death through some sort of like medicinal way. I think it happens by nature of existence.
yeah.
Um, but the degree to which we feel like we're suffering it is indicative of that self-transformation journey and the self-transcendence journey.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, I feel like the cosmos is humorous. So there's something funny about us being so restricted to like this blip in infinite time and this personality that even we have different personalities throughout our life too. Like a lot of us have different personalities. Like so it's just there's something humorous about it. And I feel like that usually as I'm sensing into it now, we do transcend self, but it usually takes those purely flow processes like
yeah.
sex, drugs, food,
Music.
entertainment, like those things that just like we're in flow and we're not really, I'm not watching TV thinking about like, oh, who am I? That's it's like, and I don't know. I mean, that's where it gets a little dicey of where do we go and we're if we're escaping or if it's enriching or,
Mm,
but it does speak to the spiritual malady that I feel like is the bell that I ring in a lot of the spaces that I'm in, which is like, yes, 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 to you, to everybody.
yeah.
And no one has brought up that we are spiritual beings having this human experience. So
Yeah.
it doesn't just stop at I'm a good person and that's all, because you're going to engage with the living world in a violent way unless you're acknowledging something else is also true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say that being, I was a practicing Jew. I still hold that in my identities, in my ethno-religious and ethno-magico-religious identities. And I prayed to God a lot. Like I stuttered saying God because I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what I was praying to.
Mm,
It was some bearded old man in the clouds for sure. Like even
mm,
as a Jew, I like kind of felt like it had to be something like that probably. But I didn't
mm,
want to do that, so I wasn't really doing it. So I think about
mm,
all those ways that I was acknowledging something else other than
yeah.
me, but not
Yeah.
really knowing what it is. And now I know that I'll never know what it is, but I know at least how to engage with those different aspects of the universe as a human
Yeah.
consciousness.
Right. I feel like many people too, as you're speaking, I'm mindful because I feel like I can really go down this rabbit hole. So I'm kind of like just microdosing it. But I feel like a lot of us today, like in 2025, we really underestimate how fast things have been moving. I think in terms of just human consciousness and how intense it's been in the past, I would say like 15 years, even with the advent of like smartphones, but prior to that, in the world that you and I grew up in, Eric, I feel like a lot of people really did need like an avatar, to interface with that bigger consciousness. Like, to now just kind of very, very briefly talk about the other side of Leo, which is Aquarius. The idea of the internet is relatively new. Like this idea that we can all be so connected, like you are currently in the West Coast and I'm in the East Coast, and we can just chat and we can record a conversation that can go up online for everybody else to hear within 2 weeks. Like that was unthinkable in the, I don't know, early 70s, or maybe only thought of by a select group of people, right? And so I think there's also been a really rapid evolution, not to say whether that evolution is positive or negative, but there's been a rapid change in how we are able to now concretize these concepts that are pretty out there, you know?
Yes, and I think it makes the human situation even more challenging.
Yes. I agree.
I
I
remember those
agree.
moments of realizing how we're now that extra distance, that extra degree away
Mhm.
from the self.
Yeah.
We have avatars on avatars now. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we're accruing wealth within a simulation
Yeah.
with that is was created by a simulation
Hmm.
by accumulating wealth. And it's that extra degree that happened, I think, only in the last like 10 years in my experience, where it really selfie culture, like that extra distance from talking to nobody, but making it sound like you're talking to somebody. And there's a lot that goes on with AI like being used in a way that I think will shrink our brain's capacity
Mm.
over time to actually have any unique thoughts. There's just like these
Mm.
aspects of like, oh, if you didn't wake up before now, it's going to be so challenging, but also it could happen even faster at the same time.
Mm. Hmm.
So it's probably more confronting.
Mm.
It's just like, yeah, it's like human, and then it's also, yeah, the human body's processing a lot of that. It's doing
Yeah.
its best.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Let's land the plane because I feel like this can turn into one of those 4 hour Rick Rubin conversations. I feel like with you, I can just keep going. So let me read you one last passage I wanted to read, which is The Degree of Your Mercury. And the imagery is fields of jasmine flowers. The description is to be surrounded by love is the heart's delight. To contact a grace bestowal of love and of light as your birthright is the greatest fanning of the human flame. When there is brightness and bounty as far as the eye can see, the inner self knows they are welcome to embody here. To inhabit this realm is to be in paradise, and it is to bear a seed from paradise, from the unfallen kingdoms into this world now. You hope and yearn to deposit that seed wherever it can flourish. This will tend to be where things are just beginning or alive with future fertilities. The seed honors the original impulse behind Earth existence, and this paean of praises, this ode to joy, remains solidly in there, ready to emerge when conditions are right, and there's nothing left to do except brighten into being. I just thought that that passage was so gorgeous, and I didn't plan for it to be this way, but I'm really glad we're kind of ending there, Eric, because I feel like this is the felt sense of you from my experience. I guess I'm really curious to hear if you how you experience it internally, but I feel like when I read this passage, I was like, yep, that's Eric. I remember even just kind of sitting across from you in class, or the way you so beautifully like tend to our communal space like years after the official container was done. I feel like this is just you to a T, but I'm curious how it feels reading that.
Feels good, Jonathan. Feels good.
I'm glad. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
it's such a sweeping passage. Also, I
It's
felt,
very like it's very mystic, ecstatic, no?
yeah, I guess it's appropriate that it lit me up because it was just I felt like, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Uh that's what I'm talking about.
Mm,
Sometimes that is. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, I mean so much comes up, but I really do just want to bring joy to people
mm,
and I do find myself ringing that bell a lot in spaces too. How we can turn I mean, this comes through my life lessons too. I mean, I learned what it feels like to commodify your passions,
Mm,
and I kind of
yeah.
refuse to do that anymore
Mm,
because to be alive is beautiful. And I have had moments like this this passage was describing where I'm just sitting on a couch with my cat on my lap and just sitting and breathing and looking out the window and feeling all of those words in just being alive feels so beautiful. I mean, it's funny because I get like the more I know, the more I like the human is like, well, duh, that's like Leo. Leo is all about like personal sovereignty. Of course, like that's what a Leo would say is like, I feel amazing. Like everyone should know who they are and should feel amazing in who they are.
mm,
And and also it means that I have to express it
mhm.
because that's the relational aspect. If there's someone with energy to express it, there's also someone with energy that needs to hear it.
Yeah, yeah. I think something that I've always perceived from many Leo suns that I know is like this emanation of like presence and this like being level permission to exist, you know?
Mhm.
And it's interesting because that is a very I think to bring Venus into the conversation, like yes, there's something very Venusian about that. Like there's something very magnetizing about that. But also to me, the primary function of being like on an essence level, like being that kind of person, but also allowing yourself to emanate that in spaces is very solar because in a way you're creating a place where people feel at home to be themselves because they see you modeling you being yourself, you know? And I think that is a service that um and I'm talking about like real authentic emanation here, right? Like I'm not talking about like this puffed up performance of authenticity that sometimes, you know, many of us, the ego, as you beautifully put, you know, like can get into that mode, right? Of like, let me perform a version of myself that falls into society's definition of authenticity so that I can be the most authentic person in this room. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm really saying just like as you mentioned, you know, just like sitting there, being in the glory of your presence and basking in life, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's getting to the requirements for belonging, and that's
Mm,
ultimately what I want for
yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
is that feeling of knowing who you are and being able to be that
mm,
amongst others.
mm,
And I tuned into the wisdom of jasmine flowers, and it's one of my favorite olfactory senses. And I also, yeah, that is one of the plants that I've been in relationship over time, and those flowers are abundant, and all that's like it's not they all smell amazing in
mm,
their own right,
mhm,
and they all just bloom as they need to bloom over time in this big shrub, and it always looks full. It always just like while they're blooming, it always looks full of these little white flowers. And that's what it takes. It's
yeah,
like that's how the waft of jasmine is created when you walk down the sidewalk is when every all those little flowers are just showing up blooming as they do,
yeah,
and they all happen to be together, which they could never have chosen, right? It's just how it is.
yeah,
Or I don't know if they chose it, who knows the wisdom of flowers, but maybe. But as far as I can tell, that's how they grow, and they're just yeah, it's I'm just finding that parallel to be very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, little white flowers with the yellow essence.
Mhm,
Something very pure about that too that I'm receiving from jasmine
mhm,
flowers.
yeah.
Wow.
Any final thing you wanna? talk about that you feel like we haven't talked about?
Yeah, you owe me $5 from 3 years ago. I'm just kidding. No,
Is that true?
no, no. What if I took this moment to just finally, um, everyone heard me. Now you gotta pay me. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Yeah, like you said, I could just talk with you forever. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about a lot of really great stuff.
Yeah,
I feel satiated.
me too. Me too.
So
Thank you,
grateful.
Eric. Thank you for your radiance and your wisdom and your rebellious playfulness. I just always really appreciate you in all of your multidimensional emanation. Where can people find you if people want to work with you?
Only if you want to work with me. It's like you have to
Only if you want to work with me.
spiritual consent, So I have a Patreon
Hmm.
that I release monthly guided meditations, tend to be an embodiment meditation, and it's free to sign up. And I also have some other content that I release behind a donation-based uh, ledge. I don't want to call it a wall. It's a ledge that is donation-based to, but yeah, that's patreon.com/transalchemy official.
Hmm.
Trans Alchemy Official.
Yeah. What does
And
that word mean to you, by the way? I know the name of your practice is trans alchemy.
uh, yeah, it's kind of a piecemeal trans trans alchemy. It felt well, I mean, the realist answer is it felt clever when I was trying to decide on a name. It
Hmm.
felt like a clever name that also worked for what I do.
Hmm.
That's like the realist one hundo P answer. And with that, I kind of feel like that I hold it loosely because of that. Like I'm
Hmm.
prepared for that not to be what I call it
Hmm.
forever. But anyway, that
Hmm.
said, it's a weird promo to give, but still go to the website. But that said, there is intention behind it because initially the feeling I got around the work that I wanted to offer was required um, transcendence. So trans meaning to cross over. So inevitably, if you are stuck, you want to be crossing from where you are to somewhere else. So
Hmm.
any journey, any healing process involves that, in my experience. And alchemy, where we want to turn, and not in like a super hermetic kind of way, but more in just like changing one form of energy into a different form of energy,
Hmm.
um, allowing what needs to change. So maybe it's yeah. So transmuting whatever word you use. So
That's
trans al-
beautiful.
and unfortunately there were other trans alchemies out there, so I had to pull the
You have
internet.
to be official.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I had to do that with my name too on Instagram. I had to be Jonathan Cole official, which I was very dismayed by. So yeah, I understand the struggle.
Yeah, so it's trans alchemy, and I also feel like I go by my name a lot with people. It's like not like people are booking sessions, you know,
Mm.
it's sessions with Eric, but you gotta be able to call it something so people can sort of it's a funny way to approximate like you need something that makes sense to you, regardless of what I think about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to have you. Would love to hold space and it's like non-denominational, it's very accessible. Like I keep a lot of that stuff in mind as well. That
Hmm.
I try to make it as much of an offering for all bodies
Mm.
as possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As someone who has been in this peer space with you and also receive your gifts, I feel like you're one of those people who you bring such emotional attunement and like really deep presence, Eric. And I really feel like that is something that a lot of people don't experience. So, whoever's listening, if you got all the way to this point, listening to us really kind of, doing our cosmic travels, highly recommend connecting with Eric. Chances are you are really resonating with Eric's field, which is why you are here all the way. So,
Oh, that's so sweet. I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
all right.
I,
Yeah. Thank
I'm,
you, friend.
yeah, you got it. I was just going to take another 10 minutes to shower you with compliments, but we can do that.
We can do that offline.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric.
Much love.
Much love.